Yeah, hey, my name is Jiri, not Jirji, that's the Czech version. I'm from Finland, obviously, and yeah, I'm going to talk about alternative user acquisition strategies, as it says on the giant screen here. I'm not a marketing person, I'm not a UA person by background. What I am is someone who's been working in games for 16 years now. So I've done all kinds of things from like the very like earliest mobile games to indie PC, AAA console. I worked in games media as a CTO for a while, funded a bunch of companies. So the first one was when I was 17. The previous company was bought by Disney, which made me the youngest Disney VP at the time, which was an interesting experience. And currently I'm the founder and CEO of Shark Punch. So, and if you're confused, like why does it say Matchmade and why do they talk about Shark Punch, the reality is that they're the same thing. So Shark Punch is a company that has done many things. So we made an indie PC game called The Master Plan. It's like a game about bank robberies in the 70s. We made a discovery and distribution platform called Playfield, which we're shutting down because that didn't work out. And for the last half a year, we've been focusing on Matchmade, which is an influencer marketing platform, which is kind of what qualifies me to be here. So obvious things, right? But this kind of still lives on, like this idea that, at least in Finland, that I'm just gonna make a great game and some dude at Apple is gonna see it and realize it's great and it's gonna get features, I'm gonna make a shit ton of money and everybody's happy. That doesn't work, hasn't really worked in a long time. I mean, still you can get your game featured, but it's, you know, the numbers look different than they used to. I mean, even if you get your game featured, that kind of solves your initial UA problems, but that's it, that doesn't carry you much longer. So I think it's kind of time that we all get very serious about how do we get users outside of, you know, either like paid premium ads or getting featured. And obviously the math is very simple, right? So as long as your LTV is higher than your customer acquisition cost, you are making money. Now the problem with that, of course, is that you have a bunch of guys with a lot of money. So you got the unicorns, you got the Supercells and Kings and whatever, who can spend more than you could ever earn with your game in this universe. So the problem with this is that this kind of makes traditional advertising a little bit tricky for many of us. So I think that's why it's important for especially the kind of indies and these startups and whatever to get creative, to look at like other channels where you can get users for your game. And there's many that are free. So yes, featuring is one. You can work with communities, you can work with social media. Word of mouth is really powerful. Influencers are great. You can work with traditional media, etc. But these are kind of the ones that I'm going to focus in this presentation. So the way this works is that we got a few examples, and we're going to go through them, and then we're going to see if there's some lessons to be learned. So first one is, you know, surely you're all familiar with this game. Who's played it? Couple? Were you angry last summer? Well, so a lot of people were kind of pissed off when No Man's Sky came out. And I think that kind of ties into their UA strategy. So No Man's Sky is a game for gamers. You know, it's the game that has everything. It's bigger than the universe. Like this is the actual pitch. Like, this game is bigger than the universe in which the game exists. So it's kind of insanity, right? But it's a game that appeals to like people who really love games, and it's a game that appeals to games media. And I think the thing about No Man's Sky is that their strategy was to like knowingly hype it up, build up a lot of hype, get traditional games media really excited about it, which makes everybody else really excited about it. And of course, the problem with that, like the problem with driving the hype train, is that you're not in control. So once you kind of like jump on that train, you don't know what's going to happen. And of course, we know what happened. They launched the game. It turned out not to be bigger than the universe is, because that's not actually possible. It turned out to have issues, as all games do. And of course, then what happened is that you had this media that had been telling all their audience that this game is going to be amazing. It comes out, the gamers are disappointed, they're kind of angry at the media. So of course the media says like, no, it's not us, it's the developers. They lied to us. And that sucks, but it's kind of the deal you make when you use hype as your UA channel. And of course, like, the thing they then fucked up, which is really sad, is that when the community, when these passionate fans started complaining, they started asking questions like, why isn't the game what you promised it is? Instead of engaging the community, they disappeared. So they just went away, no replies on Twitter, no comments whatsoever, which is kind of what brings to one of my points, which is that trust is important. Like, being authentic is important, and these guys kind of betrayed the trust of their fans. And I think it's going to be tricky with the next game because of that. But on the other hand, they did ship a lot of units, so I guess, you know, it kind of did work for them. Next one is Ben and Ed. It's a bit of a smaller game. It's not bigger than the universe, definitely. And if you don't know the game, it's basically this. So, yeah. So it's a game about a zombie dude who's running in this like death trap maze and dying in various kind of entertaining, interesting ways. And I mean, it's a snackable, funny, silly game that you play for 5 minutes, you show it to your friends, and then you don't play it for a week. And the thing about this game is that it was basically built for a specific UA strategy. Like, so this game was built for 9gag. And if you don't know 9gag, 9gag is this like stupid website where millions of people go every day to look at cat videos, right? And I mean, I'm one of the users. Like, I'm a heavy user. My girlfriend is embarrassed of me, but whatever. So what these guys did, they basically built a game for 9gag, a game that's great for like 5-second GIF animations. They posted one of those animations on 9gag. They didn't say that they're the developers of the game, but they also didn't say that they're not. So they just put like, hey, here's a cool video. And people liked it. You got a lot of people asking them questions like, oh, hey, what's the game? Like, who's the developer? So they were presenting the comments. They were like, oh yeah, it's us. We made the game because we thought it's a cool idea. And people really fucking enjoyed that. Like they got really passionate fans because of that. And of course, the funny thing about the internet nowadays is that if there's something cool on one website, it's gonna end up on all the websites. So after that, someone on Reddit, someone who's a big Reddit user, saw it on 9gag, posted it to Reddit. It got to the front page. Then they hosted the image on Imgur, which is also a popular destination by itself. So it also ended up on the front page of Imgur. And then what they did actually was that they started emailing influencers. So they would send emails to influencers saying that, hey, I don't know if you saw our game, but it was on the front page of Reddit and 9gag and all these websites. So we think it's pretty cool. Maybe your fans also think it's pretty cool. A lot of the influencers said that, oh yeah, shit, like my fans are gonna love a game about decapitated running zombies. And so, as a result of that one 9gag video, they got crazy amount of YouTube videos as well. So it kind of shows you how like they didn't spend any money at all, but because the game was kind of designed for this, it spread super wide. Then we have, of course, Best Fiends. So if we talk about influencer marketing, we kind of have to talk about Seriously, the company behind this game series. And from the beginning, Seriously's UA strategy has been YouTube. So they have a team of, I think, 6 full-time employees now, whose only job is to deal with YouTubers, get YouTubers to make videos about their games. And I mean, it's not free. So if you want to get like PewDiePie to make a video about your game, it's going to be expensive. But the thing about Seriously is that they work really closely with the YouTubers. So it's not just like, okay, here's 50,000, give me a video. Okay, here's your video, thanks. Like they really engage with them. They talk to them about, what is their audience like? Do we have cool ideas where like you can kind of make the game part of your joke, part of your show, instead of just playing it or mentioning it or whatever. So they spend a lot of time, a lot of money dealing with these like really big YouTubers and making entertaining content with them. But again, you get the same kind of like trickle-down effect, kind of network effects here, because PewDiePie makes a video. It's cool, it's funny, it talks about Best Fiends. Well, then what happens is that then all the tier 2 YouTubers, the guys that only have a ridiculous 1 million subscribers or whatever, they see it, they go like, oh, it's pretty cool. Like, PewDiePie's making videos about this game, so I should make videos about that game. And at this point, if you look at YouTube, if you search for Best Fiends, you get over 100,000 results, and they did not pay for most of those videos, definitely. And also, like, you can also see that it's actually done pretty well on the App Store. So I think nowadays Best Fiends is always kind of in the highest rankings in the US App Store. There's a bunch of other companies. You can look at what Bossa is doing. You can look at what TinyBuild is doing. I also have Traplight, Finnish guys here, because they're doing interesting things with influencers. So if you want ideas, just take a good look at what these guys have done in addition to all the companies I already mentioned. But we don't really have time for all of that, so moving on. What can we learn from this? I don't know if that's really a useful phrase there. I don't know if it actually teaches anyone anything. But instead I have a crappy Venn diagram, which you've probably also seen before. But one thing about these games is that they kind of hit all those three, like all these 3 parts work together. So if you think about, No Man's Sky, game design is this massive, massive game, which is obviously made for this, like gaming nerds who just love gaming, right? Which is obviously made for the games media, for the hype. Or if you look at Ben and Ed, it's short, snackable entertainment, which by the way is exactly what 9gag is. So it's kind of like again like these things work hand in hand. Or even Best Fiends. Best Fiends is a casual game with a pretty broad audience, but it's kind of it's funny, it's cute, it's whatever. So basically, for them, working with PewDiePie gets them the audience they want to get, and it kind of really fits the design and the brand of Best Fiends. So I think really like to be able to do this kind of like low-cost alternative marketing, you need to figure out how all these three pieces fit together. Did you get your photo? All right. So lessons. Network effects matter. So thing is like when you pay for ads. You pay for ads, so you kind of know exactly what one user is costing you. When you put a video on YouTube, like you're gonna get way more users than what you can immediately see. Or when you have a thing that's successful on 9gag, like you're gonna get a lot more than what you paid for, so-called. So I think it's important to kind of realize that these channels are all kind of bigger than they appear because of those network effects. And I think it's also important to realize that if you're thinking of kind of trying this stuff out for your UA, then you should spend some time identifying what's the network of whatever the channels are you're targeting. Like what's the one place where if you're featured, you will be featured everywhere else. Yeah, that's kind of the biggest thing about this. I mean, there's all these examples, so we already went through that, so we're not going to talk about that. If you work with influencers, which I really suggest because I think it's a super fast-growing, interesting channel, and all the teens love it. So I mean, if you make games, you probably have teens who play them. There's a couple of things, couple of tricks that work when you deal with influencers. One of them is Easter eggs. So both Seriously and Sluggerfly have done a thing where they would hide something in the game, like something cool, something interesting, and then they would kind of leak it to a specific influencer. So it's like, oh, by the way, hey, if you go, there, you go behind that door and do this thing, you're gonna find something cool. The end result is that the influencer makes a video about it. The influencer feels special because they got this secret knowledge. But what happens is also that the influencer's fans feel special because they know something that others don't because they are fans of this guy. So it kind of forms this like weird kind of fuzzy feeling between the developer and the audience and the influencer, because we all have this like shared knowledge of something the other guys don't. So even though it might not drive installs, but it can drive retention. It can kind of drive this kind of brand loyalty really well. Other thing you can do is basically create like influencer-specific content. So for example, it could be all fans of this influencer get a special hat in the game because people love that. It's like, because again, it's the same thing. It's like, because I'm a fan of this guy, I get something no one else will get. So that makes the influencer, feel important. It makes people feel like they have a special connection between influencer and the developer. Or you could just even put the influencer in the game. Like this has worked pretty well. So I mean, like you can see a lot of videos of PewDiePie playing games where he's actually playing with himself, and he seems to be enjoying that quite a lot. And I think one thing that's really important is that if you find an influencer that works for you, like you gotta keep working with them, because you get this kind of funny retention loop there. Like if the influencer keeps making videos about your game, you're gonna get the users who watched the first video. They're gonna come back to your game. But on the other hand, if you also put the influencer or something that reminds the users of the influencer in the game, then you get the reverse where like when people play the game, they go like, oh shit, like I haven't watched PewDiePie videos in a long time, so I'm gonna do that. So you can actually kind of like help each other's retention by kind of building these relationships. Yeah. This is super important when we talk about non-traditional advertising. And this is something we've kind of failed at. So our game, The Master Plan, was on Steam Greenlight, Early Access, then went to Steam. And through Early Access, we were super responsive. We talked with the community, we were part of the community, and it was all really like warm and fuzzy and nice. Then we released the game. It did okay, but it quickly got to a point where we couldn't justify spending a lot of money on it every month to keep developing it. So we kind of dropped the ball. And as a result of that, like a lot of our former fans are no longer fans. They actually kind of hate us. And a lot of them changed their Steam reviews to being negative and all that. So basically, when you work with communities and influencers and all that, like you can't break the trust because people react really, really strongly to that. Well, No Man's Sky, we kind of use that as an example of what happens if you're not, being real about what your game actually has. and what happens if you betray the trust of the audience by going away when you drop the ball. Ben and Ed, when they posted on 9gag, like they didn't really advertise the fact that they're the developers, but when the first guy asked, like, hey, like who made this game, they were really upfront. They're like, oh yeah, it's us. Like we made the game, we posted the GIF. Is that okay? And people actually kind of love that stuff. If you're being honest and you actually kind of open yourself up to these communities, like you will mostly get really, really nice comments. You will always get the few guys who are calling you, shithead and whatever. But that's, if you can't deal with that, then you should not be on the internet because that's just how it is. And what else? Yeah, Best Fiends. Best Fiends is kind of cool because, and seriously, it's kind of cool because the way they work with their influencers is that they give the influencers full creative control. So in the end, like the influencers know their audience better than you do, so they know what works for their audience. So you should not tell them what to do, because if you dictate that you have to do these things in your video, the fans are going to see that it's not real, it's not authentic, and you're going to get bad results. On the other hand, you also don't want like someone dressed up as Hitler playing your game. So basically, what Seriously does is that yes, they give people full creative control, but they also have veto rights. So they can tell the influencer, okay, like you are not publishing that, we're still gonna pay you, but you should not put that online, because you always have that risk when you deal with influencers. Like, and if you do a lot of influencer stuff, you will have that situation where they make like the dumbest, some kind of racist shit or whatever, like stupid comments while talking about your game, and suddenly your brand is associated with that comment. So you need to kind of have that ability to do something about it if it happens. Okay, so one more slide on influencers. If you want to do that, how do you do it? There's a couple of ways. One of them is just directly just going to YouTube, watching 1,000 videos of dudes with green hair shouting. It's a lot of work, but that's the way to like find the absolute best matches for your game. So because if you actually watch all the videos, you can see exactly how they act, and if you can see if it's a good fit for how your game is. But it's a crazy amount of work. And you will find out that when you email these guys, they will probably not answer. So I mean, for example, the Sluggerfly guys, the Ben and Ed guys, what they had to do is like they basically had to start the email with like, okay, we were on the front page of 9gag Reddit, blah, 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 and here's a GIF animation. That's like, okay, that works. Then that way you get a reply. But if it's like, hey, we're working on this mobile game, but it's not released yet, but you have cool videos and blah, 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 like they will not react to that at all. And then another thing is like, even if they don't reply, doesn't mean that they actually don't make a video. So the Ben and Ed guys had many occasions where they would email a YouTuber, never hear back from him or her, and then 3 weeks later find out that they actually made a video on the day they received the email. So it's kind of hard to track that, but anyway, results can be great. There's platforms like FameBit, which in my experience are very manual, very time-consuming still, and unfortunately don't give you very relevant results. So, but if you've had a good experience with any one of these, then let me know. I'm curious to hear about that. You can work with MCNs, which stands for multi-channel network. So it's basically a network of influencers, or you can work with agents. Problem with that is that usually the model is that you hand a lot of money to some guy, and you don't really know what the guy does with it, but videos come out. You can't really track, if they actually performed. You don't really know what's going on. So there's really little transparency there, and often also, like the thing that annoys me about this is that often the actual creators, the influencers, are not really getting that much out of the money you've spent, and you have no way of knowing that. And finally, the plug. We're working on Matchmade, which is basically a data-driven, intelligent, performance-based influencer marketing platform. So if this stuff is interesting to you, then just maybe come talk to me after the presentation. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.